Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining this webinar brought to you by Working Mother and Avtar to introduce to you the Best Companies for Women in India project. Before I begin, I just wanted to quickly give you a summary of the diversity and inclusion landscape in India. So the journey of diversity and inclusion in India can be kind of split into maybe about 5 different categories. What it was between 1991 to 2000, and then what happened till the year 2005, then from 2005 to 8, then 2008 to 12, and what it is right now. So if you look at this, the advent of diversity and inclusion in India actually began with the arrival of the LPG movement, the liberalization, privatization and globalization movement. This engendered a war for talent, which meant that companies had to start looking far and wide to seek the talent that was actually ready and available as also suitable for their respective industries. And here is where the whole concept of diversity and inclusion began to make sense, because this meant that companies no longer thought within the box but started to look outside of the box. That's how the very first journeys of organizations in the space of diversity and inclusion, which primarily meant diversity recruitment, actually began. When these industries, thanks to liberalization, privatization and globalization, when you had all these industries such as primarily the knowledge economy industries coming into India, they didn't just come in by themselves, they also brought best practices which could be followed by other organizations and other industries. So this actually caused a sort of an upping of the game by all organizations in India, which started to look at creating policies and programs which could make them future focused. So between 2005 and 2008, you would find that the first programs or the first initiatives around diversity and inclusion actually began in India. And I would call this phase the anti-discrimination phase, because it was at this stage that companies started thinking that they should create an equal platform, an equal base for both men and women to actually function and to be able to bring the best of their potential to the workplace. So this was largely an anti-discrimination phase, which meant companies invested in creating programs, policies, all types of initiatives which would ensure that the platform for both men and women was equal. This was the first stirrings of diversity and inclusion as we know it. Between 2008 and 2012, you had version 2 of diversity and inclusion, and that is what I call the segment creator. Because at this stage, companies realized that when you had multiple audiences who you could define by using diversity strands, then you had different customer segments which you could focus on. So this became the version 2 of the diversity and inclusion journey. So you had companies that said, hey, there is a product that I can sell only to women, or here is a group of senior citizens, or here is a group of people with different sexual orientations such as LGBT, and we can create products unique to these segments. So the version 2 of diversity and inclusion looked at diversity as a segment creator. And then you had the third version of diversity, which is what I see taking place in this country right now, which is what we call diversity as a learning facilitator. And in this avatar of diversity and inclusion, D&I has stopped being just something that HR does, or it has stopped being something that is done for the sake of only people and people-related practices, but it has actually moved into becoming a management philosophy. It's a best practice that helps not just the people within the organization to thrive, but the decisions taken by them, all the different ways in which they work, are again using the benefit of diversity and inclusion and leveraging the creation of a workplace that's very productive, very creative, is very innovative, and leverages everything, all the positive aspects that diversity and inclusion brings. This, ladies and gentlemen, is typically how we at Avtar map the journey of diversity and inclusion. So this is how we feel the whole process has come about, and we have been in the space for close to 15 years with the first formal consulting arm of Avtar, which was into diversity and inclusion, being created in the year 2005. So since then we have been observers, we have been researchers, we have actually stood and watched the way diversity and inclusion has shaped in this country, and it has been a great learning experience for us as well. Moving on, what do organizations in India really focus on when it comes to diversity and inclusion? Here are a few trends. So every industry in India today, you name it, it has a diversity and inclusion policy. It has a diversity and inclusion framework. So it could be, a D&I agenda that's at its absolute rudimentary beginning stages, or it could be a highly evolved strategic initiative which the organization has come to understand will play a role in the organization's growth. So you name it, all industries have a diversity and inclusion agenda. Similarly, if you look at the themes or the strands of diversity and inclusion which companies focus on, then you find that gender tops the chart. And it's for good reason, because when you have one half of the sky, meaning women professionals, being brought into the workplace, then it creates a dynamic, it creates energy, and a completely new sort of a positive orientation is unleashed upon the workplace, and the return on investment made with regard to gender diversity practices is completely and fully justified to the organization. You also have persons with disability, which we call PWD, age or generations related diversity, internationality, and of course you have sexual orientation, which is LGBT, ethnicity, cultural diversity, socio-economic diversity, and even work time diversity. All of these are the different diversity strands which companies in India focus on. So obviously, if you are interested in something and you wish to invest in it, then you need the budgets for it. And a quick look at the different types of budgets which companies invest into the pursuit of diversity and inclusion show that budgets are widely ranging from 0.2 to even 1.5% of the annual revenue of the company. There are many organizations which have ad hoc budgets that are approved upon an initiative being discussed and presented to the management committee or the management team. Even today in India, you have the feeling that diversity and inclusion is probably something that should belong to the realm of corporate social responsibility, of CSR. I do not agree with this view at all, because I do not believe that CSR and diversity and inclusion can be one and the same. They both have extremely different strategic perspectives. They both serve very different needs. So they cannot be one and the same. But then, in the growth journey of organizations, in the awareness journey, of companies trying to understand what it is, that diversity and inclusion is and how it can benefit the organization, there tends to be this, sort of a misnomer that diversity and inclusion and CSR are one and the same. So budgets, do come from the CSR budget as well. You also have the CEO, who directly sanctions budgets relating to diversity and inclusion. But the very fact that diversity and inclusion has started becoming a budgetary item, and that even at the beginning of the year budgets are planned and allocated in advance to the pursuit of diversity and inclusion in the workplace, is proof enough that D&I is here to stay. If you look at the periodicity of programs, you have concurrent programs, you have flagship programs, you have workshops which are continuously conducted. So there are multiple agendas, multiple initiatives that companies run. Once they have the overall objective in place, then they do create an events calendar. They do go ahead and look at what are the different sorts of programs that can be presented, and the periodicity varies from company to company. Now, with regard to metrics, diversity and inclusion is measured by way of different metrics that are available. You could have, you often notice that D&I has today become part of the top management KPIs itself. So you have companies that make it mandatory for the top management to be directly involved in the pursuit of diversity and inclusion, and it's got nothing to do with HR. Most diversity champions in a lot of organizations are business folk. They are either the operations heads, or they are the distribution heads, or they are technology leads, and they are people who are pursuing this because they truly believe the value that diversity and inclusion brings to the workplace. So number of metrics are there: retention numbers, retention of women, retention of persons with disability, ability of people to actually come out of the closet. For instance, if you have LGBT as one of your key diversity initiatives, then you could measure the number of people who are out and open with regard to their sexuality, and even that is considered as a metric. Similarly, the number of events or the number of workshops that you conduct, the kind of footprint that your diversity and inclusion agenda reaches, these are also metrics which organizations measure their progress by. Now, we spoke briefly about women's workforce participation and women's representation in the workplace, and we also realized, we also saw that that is one of the diversity strands that helps or that actually makes sure that your focus or your investment in diversity and inclusion actually bears results. That is something which companies have today realized, and which is why gender diversity is being seen as one of the most important strands of diversity. And you will find that almost 85 to 90% of organizations that have embarked upon the D&I journey focus on women's workforce participation, or on gender diversity as we call it, being the most important aspect of their diversity agenda. But what does the workplace really say? So this is not any earth-shattering news that I'm sharing with you. This is something that we have been talking about for a very long time now, and this is something which the media has absolutely highlighted and shown to the world, that women's workforce participation in India is one of the lowest in the world. So it's a shocking news that 48% of Indian women under the age of 30 take a break in career at least once. Almost 18% of them exit the workforce never to return, and the remaining women who are seeking a re-entry opportunity do find it very difficult to make a comeback into the workplace. So the investment of time, capital, effort, which is spent in educating, in recruiting, in training, in mentoring women, actually goes completely unutilized, when they exit the workforce. And this is not just a loss for the organization. I mean, as a corporate, we understand your pain. We know that you spend a lot of time, effort, you spend management effort, you spend a lot of good, precious executive time in the attraction and retention of women, but the fact that attrition levels are so high is something that baffles everyone. And this is, like I said, not just a cause of pain to organizations, to the corporate sector. It is also a huge loss for the country as a whole. And just to prove this point, what really happens when women in the workforce are present? What are the economic implications of this? The labor force participation gap between men and women in India is at 50%, while globally the average gap is only about 12%. So if you were to take the example of a country like let's say Singapore, now you will find that out of the 100% of all available women in the workplace, almost about 75 to 76% women are gainfully employed. And you will find that about 90% of the men folk, all available employable men are employed in the workplace. So you will find the gap to be about 10 or 12%. But if you take the case of India, you find that the women's workforce participation rate is only at about 25.5%, which means out of the available 100 employable women in India, only 25 have actually found careers which make them economically productive. Now the flip side to this is, if we are able to close this gap, if we are able to bridge that gap that exists between the women's workforce participation and the male workforce participation, then the benefits that accrue not only to India but to the corporates, to organizations like you, are immense. Since the gap is much larger in India, the economic gain that accrues from closing it is huge compared to other countries. Just to give you a sense of what we are talking, India's GDP would grow by an additional 1.4% every year if women were to participate as much as men in the economy. And the workforce gender parity, if achieved, is expected to have the most positive impact on India vis-a-vis other countries, with a jump of almost 27% to the GDP. And what does that mean? When the GDP increases, all of us benefit, because you will have more consumers, you will have more money, available to spend, you will have more prosperity all around. And to just put a number onto that, that point that we're talking about a 700 billion USD increase to the Indian economy should we have a large number of women participating in the workplace. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is the vision. This is the big prize. This is the size of the prize that we are looking at. Now I would just like to introduce you, although Avtar needs no introduction to you, I'd just like to take a couple of minutes to talk to you about the Avtar group. We are 3 organizations within the group. One is called Avtar Career Creators, and it is led by my colleague and co-founder of the group, Uma Shankar. The second is called Flexi Careers India, which is the diversity and inclusion consulting firm, and you all would have interacted with Karthik Ekambram, my colleague, who leads the consulting practice out of Flexi Careers India. And you all might not know that we also run a trust called the Avtar Human Capital Trust. And this is a fully not-for-profit organization that works to enable the skill development of women who are at the bottom of the pyramid. So these are 3 organizations that form part of the Avtar group, and very glad to share with you that Avtar group is India's first gender diversity at the workplace champion in the past 15 years. We have been the first organization that has actually begun espousing the cause of gender diversity, and inclusion. We are India's #1 D&I consulting firm to introduce audits, workshops, research-based interventions, most of which have found extreme value and a great sense of usefulness to organizations in not just ensuring that their gender diversity ratio is improved, but also the fact that they get to leverage the benefit that such gender diversity brings to their workplace in the form of greater productivity, greater employee engagement, greater happiness in the workplace. We are also India's first recruitment consulting firm with a special program for women on a break. You all would have heard of Avtar Iwin, www.avtariwin.com. This is India's first career service for women professionals who have taken a break in career. We have 40,000 women on that network. Besides that, we also hold a very active inventory of 2.5 lakh resumes who we interact with. These are resumes of women who are at the early career, mid-career and matured career stages. and therefore are suitable for recruitment by organizations like you. Besides this, we have delivered solutions in the space of RPO, recruitment process outsourcing, workforce intelligence, and diversity and inclusion consulting to almost every single one of India's top 100 companies by turnover. So this is who the Avtar group is, and while I know that we don't need an introduction to you because you know us very well, I just thought I would take this opportunity to share this information with you. Now, the beautiful thing about the project that I'm going to talk to you about now is the coming together of Avtar with the Working Mother group. Working Mother Media, who is our partner, is the world's most celebrated gender parity champion. They have entered India through this association with Avtar, and we are their partners in rolling out the Best Companies for Women in India project. Working Mother Group is the owner of the prestigious 100 Best Companies listing, which they have been offering or which they have been conducting for the past 30 years since 1986. They are a role model, they are a mentoring organization, and they are an advocate for America's 17 million mothers. With their website, their magazine, which is also called Working Mother, the research that they do, the social networks that they run, Working Mother provides solutions and strategies to create gender equal workplaces. So this is the Working Mother group, and you will find a lot more of information if you look up their website, the workingmother.com website, and you will get plenty of information about what they do. Now, what has actually happened is, by the coming together of Avtar group and the Working Mother group, this is what we hope we can help corporate India to achieve. In order for corporate India to increase women's workforce participation, we know that it's important for planning and budget allocations. It is important for advocacy and policy to actually take place. It's also critical and even more important for measurement and tracking to take place. Now, these three aspects, planning and budget allocation for diversity and inclusion, advocacy and policy creation for gender diversity and for other forms of diversity, should you look at that, and the ability to measure, because we all know that what gets measured only gets managed. So the ability to be able to measure what you're doing and benchmark it. And please note this very critical point. I'm emphasizing it because I believe that this is where the entire focus, entire fulcrum of this project that we are running actually hinges on, which is the benchmarking, the ability to benchmark what you're doing against what's the best practice that's happening in the industry. I think with the coming together of these three focus areas, it's going to be very, very easy for organizations to be able to engender a very, very good diversity and inclusion agenda. So that's where a collaboration of congruent minds has actually happened. We have Working Mother Group, which is a celebrated diversity advocate in their country, and you have the Avtar Group, which is again an organization that's extremely well known in India for the work that we have done in the space of women's workforce participation. We both have a reputation for groundbreaking primary research and grassroots advocacy for gender parity. We both own proprietary tools and methodologies for data acquisition, data privacy, and data analysis, and both of us share the same strong bonds with industry captains. So this is the coming together of Working Mother and Avtar, and what we present to you, ladies and gentlemen, is the solution to the benchmarking of corporate India's policies for greater gender balance. And that is the Working Mother and Avtar Best Companies for Women project. I can't tell you how delighted we are that we are able to bring this project to you, to India, and to be able to make sure that the great work that is being done by many of our organizations who are unsung heroes, the corporates that are unsung heroes in this entire journey, we would like to bring them to light. We would like to actually benchmark their practices. We'd like to look at organizations which have been conducting extremely successful programs, whether it is in the attraction or the retention or the growth of women professionals, and we'd like to offer it to you to benchmark it against your own policies and programs. So just to give you a quick an idea as to what this means, the Best Companies for Women in India project, we refer to it as the BCWI. The BCWI is brought to India for the first time in 2016 by Avtar, a pioneer in the diversity and inclusion journey in India and also in D&I studies in collaboration with Working Mother. This project was launched in the United States in 1986 and has set standards for the work-life practices of companies in the US. The Best Companies for Women in India project aims to promote the advancement of women professionals in corporate India by identifying, sharing, showcasing and celebrating the best practices and key trends which organizations follow or have noticed and are therefore building projects and programs for, and we would like to bring that to you. This will be the largest self-tracking, self-reporting and self-evaluating opportunity for Indian companies to benchmark themselves with regard to policies and practices for women's career advancement. Which are the areas that will be assessed? These are the areas that will be assessed. So every questionnaire, every tool of the Best Companies for Women project will contain all of these sections. You will have the workforce profile, you will have a safety and security section, a paid leave section, company culture and work-life programs section, women's recruitment, retention and advancement section, flexible working section, benefits which are other career enablers section, and best practices for women's career enablement and advancement. So this is what the tool, the Best Companies for Women in India tool project will actually bring to the table. Here is a quick snapshot of the 100 best companies which were listed by the Working Mother Group for 2015. This was the list that was announced last year in 2015 of the 100 best companies in the US. Now I'm consciously using the word list because, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a ranking. This is a listing. It is an alphabetical listing. So you will find that you have companies which are listed alphabetically from A.T. Kearney to Zurich, North America, and from A to Z you have companies which are listed as the 100 best companies. What has this project actually achieved in the US? And you know what, this is what fascinated me, and this is what really made us at Avtar believe that we have to bring this tool to this country, to our country, and to make sure that there is a collective raising of the bar that happens. In 1986, when the Working Mother Group introduced for the very first time the 100 Best Companies project, which was 3 decades ago, only 5 companies actually offered paid maternity leave. But today, 100% of all the 100 best companies offer it. Previously, in 1986, the women's representation was an average of 33%, while that of managers was at 26%. But over time, the best companies have 46% of their total workforce being women and 43% of their managers being women on an average. When it comes to women leadership, in 1986, 2 best companies were led by female CEOs. However, no Fortune 100 company had a woman CEO. Today, 11 best companies in the best companies listing, in the 100 best companies of the US listing, are led by women CEOs, and 9 companies lead organizations, 9 women lead organizations in the Fortune 100 listing today. When it comes to flexible working, in 1986, only 7 of the 30 best companies at that time actually offered flexi time. But today, all 100 best companies offer flexi time and telecommuting, while a majority offer job sharing and compressed work weeks. Now, the interesting part to me, at least, when I saw this for the first time, was the fact that when you start benchmarking best practices, when you start collectively coming together on a platform to share what are the good things that you do, it is not as if you're losing your competitive edge. It is actually what you're doing to increase the kind of talent that is available for everyone to actually use. So when you participate in the Best Companies for Women project, what essentially happens is that everyone gets to know the best practices of organizations. Everyone gets to know what each person is doing. Everyone gets to share those tremendously out of the box ideas and suggestions that everybody can use. This is what I call the collective raising of the bar. So here are a couple of quotes of what the Best Companies has actually done. And you have a quote from Jennifer Allen, who is the diversity strategy leader of PwC, who feels that the benchmarking that Working Mother 100 Best Companies provides was critical to making the business case for new investments in diversity and inclusion. When it comes to promoting family-friendly policies and publicizing trends in workforce flexibility, there is no better resource. This is the quote given by Ms. Allen, who is the diversity strategy leader at PwC. And if you look at what Candice has to say, who is the president and CEO of just one minute, of Wellstar, this is what she has to say. Applying for the 100 best companies has helped us evaluate ourselves and take steps to ensure that we create a world-class best place to work. We have been on the 100 best list for 8 years, and we have learned from the best, expanding our way of thinking to respond to the needs of our team members. So this is what this is the benefit that the Best Companies actually has. Now there may be a few of us who feel we are already taking part in another study, or we are already part of another survey and things like that, and here's what I have to share with you in response to that. Other surveys typically involve employee feedback which is collected, which means you absolutely have no control over the feedback that's being given by employees. Other surveys in the market involve a registration fee and or a withdrawal fee. The top 100 companies are ranked and listed, and companies need to involve hundreds of employees in responding to the survey. In comparison, if you look at the BCWI, which is the Best Companies for Women in India, this goes strictly from an employer perspective. There's no employee feedback survey. The entire process is free of cost. The best companies are not ranked, but they are listed. They are listed alphabetically. And an applicant company submits one single copy of the application, which can be filled by a 4 or a 5 member team. What is the participation process? So registration is the first step. You just have to visit www.avtariwin.com/bestcompanies. If you go into that link, you will find a very simple registration form. Not more than 5 or 6 items are asked in that registration form. You just have to register for it. Once we obtain your registration, then we will send you a confirmation of participation. This is a document which which we will send to you, which my team will share with you, and you will have to confirm your participation by submitting a signed copy of the undertaking that is there in the confirmation of participation. Once we receive the COP from you, then we will actually share with you a confidential password protected link for the application to your company. And you can submit one single copy of the completed application. The last date for the receipt of the completed application is June 30th. Now, a few more points. All completed applications are scored. So if you complete your full application, the Best Companies for Women in India application, you will be given an overall rank which is absolutely private to you and sectional ranks. Every company that has submitted a completed application, irrespective of whether they make it to the final list of best companies, will receive a copy of their scorecard with this ranking information tentatively by the first week of September 2016. The ranks are strictly confidential and will be shared only with the internal leadership of the company, and this will be on November 9th and 10th 2016. So you will you will obtain the information, you will obtain the ranking, the listing at the Global Advancement of Women Conference, which takes place at Mumbai on November 9th and 10th. Here, to the right side of the screen, you will find the scorecard, which typically you will obtain. So you will obtain an overall rank, which is completely personal and private only to you. And then you will have clusters. You will have the different sections, like I was mentioning, in which also you will have a rank. So all of these will be provided to you. We will also share with you, the different benchmarking reports that are available, and we will share with you the details of what are all the different reports that can be, made or that can be accessed by you. So the best companies will be honored at the Global Advancement of Women Conference 2016, which is to be conducted by Working Mother, and Avtar are the knowledge partners to that conference. It's taking place on November 9th and 10th at Mumbai this year. And the 2016 Working Mother and Avtar Best Companies for Women in India list will also be released to the media at that time. The companies will not be ranked but listed alphabetically in the Best Companies list. So here are a few thoughts that I wanted to leave with you with regard to creating a gender balanced workplace. How do we change companies' minds about women? All the points that I'm sharing with you are what we have seen work in other organizations. We work with over 150 companies in helping them pursue their gender diversity agenda in multiple ways. We help with recruitment of early career, mid-career and senior women leaders. We help in workshops, in training programs, in sensitization programs, in POSH programs. We work on a wide range of different types of training and learning initiatives that we help you with, and we also help in conducting diversity and inclusion audits. Apart from this, we've also been the knowledge partner to a multitude of events that have been conducted by organizations that are keen on promoting gender diversity in their workplace. So here are a few ideas. First, make it personal. You are a senior executive in your organization and you're already influencing your company's approach. If you are not paying much attention to the issue of women's advancement, then you are by default ensuring that things may not change. So make it personal. Second, change the conversation. Third, use data to create transparency and challenge entrenched mindsets. This is what is the primary purpose of inviting you to be part of the Best Companies for Women in India project. You can use data which will then help you to create the business case even more powerfully. And finally, we want you to rethink genuine sponsorship for women. So these are a few ideas that I thought I would share with you. Here are a few tools that we have created which would help you implement diversity and inclusion in your workplace. We have a Kunavan approach to decision making. We have the BLQD that would help assess the operating and people managers D&I perception and belief. We have a D&I audit. We have an inclusivity index. We put together a second career readiness study. We provide ARC, which is a job analysis for flexible working. We can offer you a D&I lexicon, and we have a D&I orientation for leaders through an immersion exercise. So all of these are projects and initiatives that we help you. We will help you with. If in case you need these tools to further the diversity and inclusion journey at your own organization. Remember, the last date for registration to the Working Mother and Avtar Best Companies for Women project is just round the corner. It's on 30th April 2016. So if you haven't registered yet, please do so immediately. It's a simple process. You just have to visit www.avtariwin.com/bestcompanies and you have to register yourself. Immediately upon receipt of your registration, we will share with you a COP, a confirmation of participation, and after you send your signed copy of the COP, we will share with you the password protected link which is unique to you and which you can then use to share information about your organization's gender diversity practices. The last date for completing the full process, which is all these three steps: your registration, your confirmation of participation, and your filling of the questionnaire. This will close by June 30th, 2016. So I would just like to close by welcoming you to experience the absolute power that this benchmarking effort actually brings. Invite you to participate, to measure, to benchmark, and enjoy the ability to rise the gender diversity bar within your organization. And moving beyond the organization's perspectives, I would also urge you to participate in the Best Companies for Women in India project so that you can enable women to rise to the fullest of their potential.